I think most of you know about SIPA. SIPA stands for Silicon Valley Indian Professional Association. It was started in 1987 by some engineers who wanted to get together, network, and we have kept the same spirit throughout, and our goal is to help our professionals network and learn, connect, and grow. So, and we do this by various methods. We have events like this every month. It's around a soft topic like personal branding, or some technology topic like big data or cloud. And the whole idea is for you to learn what's happening in the industry, meet people from your industry and network and grow. And that's the whole idea about SIPA. So we have this monthly event, and on November 9th, we are going to have our annual event. We don't know where. So we will be sending out announcements around the annual event as well. I want to introduce you to Karen. Karen and I met about 3 years ago. She actually consults for my startup as well, iCharts. It's free, you can try. So Karen is a branding expert, and I really respect her and admire her, the way she has approached branding in general. And I was actually at her book launch, and she's selling her book. She'll talk a little bit about that. I was at her book launch in January, and I decided that this would be a great event to have for SIPA members as well. And like me, many of you are also from India and from other Asian countries, and you know that branding is considered like a taboo. My company will take care of me, my boss will take care of me. And our fathers worked in Tatas and Birlas, and that was not a problem. But now we are here in the Silicon Valley. You cannot just be a Java developer or a data modeler. You need to be a little bit more. And that resonated a lot. I personally am following. Her book is right by my bedside, and I read it almost every day, and it's really helpful. And I hope you will find this helpful as well. So just a formal introduction. Karen is a corporate and personal branding expert. She has her own company called Branding Waves, and she was a partner with Regis McKenna, who most of you know was instrumental for Apple Genentech branding. She's the author of this book, Branding Waves, and she's been featured in Business Week, Forbes, and very numerous TV and radio interviews, and she's consulted with more than 150 companies. And in October, she's actually going to be a keynote speaker at the World Brand Congress in Mumbai, in India. So Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Deepak. I had coffee with Naram Bakshi. Where are you, Naram?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was fascinating. And he encouraged me to do what I do when I go to the yoga studio. Namaste. Namaste. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much for staying with us. We are learning the 21st century skill of adaptability and flexibility. So I don't know how many of you were in the other room, but we all trooped over here because apparently when you do computer scheduling here, sometimes little details get left out, like, you know, the AV crew needs to set up the night before for the thing the next day. Anyway, delighted to be here. I'm talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. It's personal branding. And personal branding is so important to me because it is so empowering. And when I see what it can do for other people, it's really why I wake up in the morning these days. So I do both corporate and personal branding, but the two are very synergistic, and we'll be talking a little bit about that today. But personal branding has gone from being a nice to have to a got to do. It is a requirement today. And so why is that? We live in a changing world. I don't have to tell all of you in Silicon Valley how much things have changed. There are so many competitive forces at work. You know, we have globalization, we have all these new technologies that have changed whole industries. We have new business models that have cropped up. I mean, look at how music, books, all these things are being distributed digitally. And what we have to do today is to be able to see where those trends are going, see what the hot spots are, and see where our skill set is and how it can align, or how we can learn new things to keep current and relevant. Because as I was talking, what is your name again?
Rosemary.
Rosemary today, she said, yes, we're still kind of in this volatile economy, and unless we stay relevant, unless we're seen as adding value to the new economy, we may not have a job, because there is no job security today. When you look at social media, and how many of you are active on social media? Raise your hand. A good part of the room. That's wonderful. Because 90% of recruiters source talent through social media. And if you're not found, then you won't get the opportunities. And it's not just recruiters. It's also people looking for people to partner with for business opportunities. It's VCs looking for, hot companies doing cool things in a certain space. And 44% of those recruiters say that they have rejected people based on what they had on social media. So, it's just really changed so much of what we do. And in terms of how we communicate, how we engage, how we influence, social media is huge. We're also seeing this era of the free agent. I was just talking to, what's her name again? Alex. Just talking to Alex. Alex is a consultant, kind of a business strategy consultant in HP. And as a consultant, he goes around to different business units to consult. He is an agent. We are all agents, whether we work for a company or we truly are independent. So in an agent-based model, which we are in today, it is incumbent upon everyone to brand themselves. Because if you don't brand yourselves, you can't be found. And if you don't brand yourselves, then people don't know when they need to partner with you, when they need to engage with you. And the model doesn't work. The system does not work. So before we used to be in, kind of a command and control management model. Now we're in a very collaborative management model. And we also see the virtualization of work, where, how many of you have done virtual meetings with colleagues? Almost all of us. And today, we may be collaborating with people who are, in other countries. People we've never met face-to-face before. So the dynamic is changing. And people are going to be looking you up online, even people, potential colleagues in your own company. And what are they going to find? So how do you show up? I mean, when was the last time you did a search on your name? I mean, anyone within the last week? A few of you. This is what, that first page result is very important. How do you show up? You show up in the manner in which you will put you at the best advantage for either getting a job, getting funded, getting partnership or business opportunities. And that's what we're talking today about personal branding. So to thrive in the new economy, you must brand yourself. I hope I have your attention now. So let's get on the same page with some definitions. I think of it as the what and the how. So what is personal branding? It is, in essence, your reputation and image. It's what other people say about you. Personal branding, then, is the how, the strategy and actions that you take to develop a brand and nurture it and guide it. Because we all have a say in this. If we do nothing, we'll be branded by other people. And some of those people may not have your best interests at stake. Excuse me. This is my early brand. I don't know if you can see this picture, but the little girl in the front is me on a farm with the tractor in the background, Mount Hood in the background that you probably can't see. I grew up on a small family farm in Oregon. My dad did not graduate high school. We did not have access to piano concertos, ballets. We didn't even have a library in the unincorporated rural part where I lived. We had a bookmobile. How many know about bookmobiles? A few of you. So, I mean, this was my life. It's not that I was bereft of any culture whatsoever. You know, my mom did buy books and things like that in our own home, but my background is not the kind of background that you would expect for someone who would eventually write a book, would eventually be internationally known for something, who would be meeting with CEOs and boards on their corporate branding strategy. So I hope that you can take some inspiration in my story in that I wasn't born this way. I developed who I am today. I started out being shy, somewhat awkward, actually public speaking was something that just made me so scared. You know, like I'd get up and I could just swear that people could hear my heart beating, you know, when I get up to speak. So, you know, even if you think that there are things that you don't feel comfortable with, you can do them and start getting comfortable with it. You're going to have to brand for different careers throughout your life. And the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics says that in a lifetime, an average worker will have more than 10 jobs and multiple careers. Some people say like 20 jobs. And I think that's very, very real, especially as we live longer. What I'm finding, there's so many baby boomers today that are coming to me and say, I need to rebrand. And some are rebranding for, you know, jobs. Maybe they think it's their last job before they retire. Other people are rebranding for, you know, maybe their nonprofit or a volunteer position. And I think that today it's so important to learn the skills of strategic personal branding. Because if you have a goal, personal branding will help you to get there. So this is my trajectory. I started out in journalism. I was a daily newspaper reporter. Then I got into public relations, was an executive in public relations, was an executive in an advertising agency, joined Regis McKenna when he was starting this whole marketing consulting practice. How many of you recognize the Regis McKenna name? I know it's been a while, but yeah, he still has a lot of name recognition today. He was a true market visionary, and he did incredible work in terms of putting companies like Apple that no one knew about on the map and helping to position that company, helping to position the product, helping to create the brand for Apple and many, many iconic companies. And over time, you know, we also work with HP, and I know there's a lot of HP people here. When I was on my own, I've been on my own for 19 years now. HP has been my client in a number of different iterations, from doing kind of corporate branding, department branding, launching new services, that kind of thing. In all of this, I don't have this on this chart because it looks too weird, but I actually was an entrepreneur in Italian vacation rentals. So that seems very odd with this face, right? I am married to a Ferraiolo, so at least I have that. And I told my husband if I was smart, I would have taken his name during the 2 years that I did this Italian vacation thing. I probably would have been a little more credible, if you will. But the Karen Ferraiolo I know is his stepmom, so I definitely didn't want to have that name. And then finally, I got into branding. And as I saw things that were happening in branding, I did so much work with, you know, I've worked with Fortune 100 companies down to startups, but my real love is working with entrepreneurs. And so I saw the kind of things, you know, branding, especially for entrepreneurs, it's just like, you know, well, first of all, why do we need branding? And then second of all, what is this thing? And it just seemed like this mystery to them. So I wanted to break it down, and I broke it down into these 5 steps that I'll be talking about today. And people were saying, you don't just stop there. You have a great methodology. You need to help us. You need to repurpose it for personal branding because there's such a need out there and there's no practical methodology. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So why do we need to brand? We talked a little bit about it, but first of all, respect. You know, when people say your name, they're going to think something. They're going to think something of value that you're offering. You will be known for something. The ecosystem will advocate for you. And the ecosystem that I'm talking about is the ecosystem that you put into play if you're looking for a job, or you're trying to get promoted in your company, you're looking for funding, you're looking for business partners. There's a particular ecosystem at work for any of those things. And it's not just all of Silicon Valley. It is specific to what you're trying to achieve. You want those influencers to advocate for you. And how do you make it happen? Personal branding done right will help you to achieve that. So by doing that, you'll have more opportunities. By aligning what you love to do and that you're really good at with your job or your company that you may be creating, it will make it so that you can be successful. There's something about branding from the inside out, and when you have that passion and it radiates out and other people are attracted to it, that's when real personal branding takes place. And when you're successful and when you have that alignment in your life, you're going to enjoy your work and you're going to enjoy your life more. So what's not to love about personal branding? Deepak had talked about this briefly, about some of the cultural barriers to personal branding for Indians and for Asians in general. But you do need to be visible and you do need to be known for value. In essence, if we are free agents, then we need to own our own branding. We need to be our own branding department, if you will. But I want you to shift your mindset about how you think about personal branding. And when I was talking to Naran today, he said, basically in India, it's considered very bad to be talking about yourself or promoting yourself. I want you to shift your mindset from promotion to education. And education is something that I think we all can get our arms around and feel good about. Because, when I think about promotion, I think about people having a megaphone and there's like these one-way messages going out. That's not what personal branding is about. Personal branding is about educating people on your unique value so that there can be greater value. So people understand your place in the whole value chain and they can build upon your value. So it's really shifting from an idea of me to we. And how can we add value to the world, and how can my particular talents and expertise, experience and contacts help to make that happen? And when that happens, that's when a community starts forming around what you're doing and how people help you. So just to go out and promote or tweet things out without this strategy, without this understanding of what you're trying to do in the greater world, I think it will be pretty much all for naught. So that's why you really have to connect with the we and what is that value that you can add to the we. So I believe you have to be your own brand manager, and these are the 5 steps that we'll be talking about. And in an hour and a half talk, I'm not going to be able to go through all of them exhaustively, but let me just take you through them quickly. So we have positioning, number 1. And positioning is so important because positioning is the foundation for brand. Positioning will help you figure out, what your unique value proposition is for a certain target audience. And it will help you to differentiate from the competition. And so if you have that as a credible base for your brand, then all the other stuff will happen more naturally. The second thing is messaging. So it's not good enough to have just a positioning strategy. You have to have messages that are going to resonate with your target audience and the other influencers in the ecosystem. So this is a very important part, and perhaps part of that might be your elevator pitch. The messages might go into your LinkedIn profile, your resume, but they always have to be consistent and clear. And then you have your brand strategy, and I'm going to be talking about cake and icing a little bit later. But basically, the cake is your rational foundation, your rational value. The icing is your emotional value. And you need to have both for a strong brand, and that's what we're going to put together in a brand strategy platform. Number 4 is the ecosystem. Excuse me. We mentioned the ecosystem earlier. So this is the influencer and this reference structure that you'll be building to help guide your brand. And finally, we'll take a look at actions. And in an action plan, I like to look at it as 2 parts. The first part is brand improvement. If you look at your current brand, let's say your current brand strategy platform, and you look at your desired brand, is there a gap? Where are those gaps? How can you fill those gaps? If there are gaps to fill, then that becomes part of your brand improvement plan. I mean, I would like to think that all of us are perfect and that we never need any improvement. I'm still working on Kang, believe me. And I hope that all of you are continuing to work on yourself throughout your life. You know, it's all about lifelong learning, lifelong development. The second part of the action plan is brand communication. And that's how you take your message out and in what form. For some people, it's heavy up in social media, and for other people, it may be doing more stuff like public speaking or white papers or whatever. But think through, how do I communicate what this special skill or this expertise or this special point of view that I have, how do I share that with the world? The real question is, how can you stand out? And I always tell people, be bold. Now, when I say be bold, that doesn't mean that you have to wear a red suit every day. What I mean by that is, be bold in how you think about a niche that you can own, an area that you can be known for. So what category can you lead? Because when I was at Regis McKenna, and people would say, oh, we just do that, and well, everyone else says that they do that. How do you stand out? If you cannot stake out a leadership position, I mean, if you're going to go through this process anyway, why say, oh, I'm number 2 or number 3, or I'm one of the several million people who kind of do this generic thing? No, be a leader. Find something that you can be a leader in. So figure out what your target audience need is. Figure out how your strengths and value can align with that target need, and figure out, can you differentiate from the competition that's out there? And you keep on iterating like this. This is kind of a triangulation model. This is before we get into the position statement. Keep on triangulating till you find something that, ooh, target audience need, strengths and value, that'll match up. Not too much competition. Whoop, this is it. So we do this for companies, we do this for products, and you can do it for yourself. So this is the positioning statement template, and it's also in the book, but I put goal with a blank line because you have to have a goal. So what is your goal? Is your goal to get a job? Is your goal to fund your company? Is your goal to be seen as a leader in the nonprofit space? Is your goal to thought leadership in a certain area? What is your goal? And I'm working with a CEO, and she said that her goal was to have an article in the Harvard Business Review, a thought leadership article in the Harvard Business Review or some big business media. So that meant that her target audience was for the editors of the Harvard Business Review and other business media. Because you need to have a target audience. So who is your target audience? Is it a hiring manager? Is it a VC? I mean, who is that target audience? Because once you figure that out, then you can figure out what is that unique value that you're going to be offering to that target audience. If you don't have a target audience, then you're going to have kind of diffuse messaging. And we see a lot of that where people try to be all things to all people, and then they just don't stand apart. So I have a lot of friends who are marketing consultants. And even though they're marketing consultants, they don't do a very good job of marketing themselves. Because I ask them, what is it that you do? and out of their mouth is this laundry list, 7, 8 things. I don't know about you, but I can't remember 7 or 8 things. And 3 months later when someone says, I'm looking for someone who does X, Y, Z, I can't remember if my friend did that or not. So pick something that you can own. It doesn't mean that's the only thing that you do, but you do all your marketing and positioning around that. So think of a big bullseye, and in the middle, there's a bullseye with 80% of all my effort and resources are going to be against being known as this. And then 20% can be low-hanging fruit. I mean, if you have a company, it's the same deal. Be known for something, put most of your effort there, and then you can have the low-hanging fruit, maybe different other market segments or whatever. But don't try to be known as the leader or whatever in all these various market segments, because you're just going to diffuse your effort. So really focus. So figure out what your category is. I am a whatever. For me, I'm a branding expert. And so, every time people hear my name, they know branding, either corporate branding or personal branding, but it's branding, right? So what are you going to be associated with? I mean, I can do a lot of other things, believe me, but I want to be known as this branding strategist. And then figure out your value proposition. The value proposition should be answering that problem statement. Now, the problem statement can be an opportunity statement, because in positioning, you're either solving a problem or you're enabling an opportunity. And sometimes you're doing a little bit of both. And then finally, if you haven't done it in the category and value proposition, write a differentiation statement. And it's really good to say, unlike XYZ, whatever XYZ is, I am this person who does this thing that's different. So if you're looking for a job, unlike other software engineers or program managers or, security people, I do this. So this run-on sentence, whoa, what did I do? This run-on sentence comes from Jeffrey Moore. Who's read Crossing the Chasm? It's a really iconic marketing book. So Jeff was a partner with me at Reeves McKenna. And I love this, this format of 4 blah, blah, who needs or wants, I am, who, and why. Because it's this run-on sentence. And when you write this run-on sentence, you know whether this is going to be compelling or not, if you can put your objective hat on. So let's look at a quick example. Now, some of you will say, oh, this example doesn't apply to me because I'm not a software engineer. It doesn't matter. You can learn. This is very illustrative, and I'll explain why. So this is a position statement for a software engineer. His target audience is, that could be her too. We'll say it's she, right? Her target audience is for the CTO and executive team who require industry-wide adoption of our technology to realize the corporate vision. The category is, I am an open source software visionary with a proven track record of industry leadership and execution. The value proposition is who can accelerate industry adoption and standardization around our technology. Now, if you look at the problem statement, you can see that the value proposition directly relates to that problem statement. And then the differentiation is, unlike other open source developers, I can deliver technology initiatives and drive open source projects that further corporate objectives. Now, the reason why this is really interesting is you can see that she did not say that she was a software engineer. Does anyone know why this is happening? Okay. This person is not saying, I'm a software engineer or I'm a programmer. That is not what this person is positioning as. This person is positioning as an open source software visionary. So visionary is the noun, right? And open source software is the qualifier. So if people are really interested in open source, then this is a good thing. Now, because she is positioning as a visionary, we have this differentiation that says, I can deliver, because a lot of times visionaries can't deliver. They're really good at the big ideas, but give them a project, and do they really deliver on the project? So this is very important. And the other differentiation is a lot of times engineers and people writing code or whatever are not necessarily strategic about business. So if you have someone who's a visionary, who's a software engineering person, can deliver on initiatives, and can further corporate objectives because they get it, they understand what the business part of it's all about, that's differentiable. Any questions?
Yes.
So are you
Oh,
saying,
just a second.
so are you saying that,
Is there a hand mic? SIPA. Anyway,
oh, well, are you saying, with the differentiation, that's the one that I'm a further question on. So if I was the person interviewing and they said, I'm different because I do deliver technological initiatives, but other competitors or other developers may do that also. So how are they further differentiating?
well, I think in this case, this person would provide evidence messages on the exact kind of technology initiatives in the open source area that was meeting corporate objectives. So once you do a position statement and you think it's compelling, you have to provide evidence. And the next slide that I have will show what some of that evidence is.
Karen, my name is Chris Verma. The question I have here, when you say software visionary, people's first reaction is that this is a 30,000 feet high level person. Does he have hands-on experience? So it puts you in a different category. How you relate to that?
Well, that's why I'm saying that the differentiation is that this person is going to provide evidence that she delivers on technology initiatives. So there has to be evidence of that. So you do have to counter that. But there are a lot of times when companies will have, say, emerging technology groups, and they need to have people who are visionaries. They need to have people who can see beyond the current horizon. So in that situation, that would be, currency. Yes.
So again, the way you describe this entire thing, in a business where we typically do this, and for companies, if they need to have a second brand, either trying to address a market segment or a completely different product line, they could create a new brand. How does a human being do that? So 20 years I'm a software guy, and after later in my time, I want to be doing something else, sell snake oil or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, how do I rebrand myself with that?
That's a really good question. I'm going to give you an example that is, you're going to think it's really far afield, but I'm hoping that you can see the illustration here. So there was someone who came to me, she had done, 18, 20 years in retail fashion sales. And she said, I'm at that point in my career where I really want to do something that speaks to my heart. And I want to get into elder care. And I'd like to get into elder care management, eventually work with families and really help people to figure out solutions. And she said, after 20 years in retail, how am I going to do that? Who's going to hire me for that? So what we did is we went back and we said, okay, let's look at everything that you have in your background, everything that you have in your bag of tricks that we could pull out and reassemble. So a lot of times you're repackaging things that you already have and then adding some new stuff. So the old stuff that she had is, whoa, before she went into retail sales, she actually was a social worker working in elderly facilities. She had a degree in psychology and a master's degree in education and counseling. So she could be seen as someone who could really relate and counsel families and what have you. And then I said, let's fill in some of the gaps here. She started volunteering. She started volunteering with Alzheimer's patients. She took care of an elderly woman. I said, bring up your family situation, because she actually took care of her mother with Parkinson's for a couple of years. So when we packaged it all together, we said, here is a customer service all-star because we said the first way that you get into elder care is through sales, and then you can get into the care managers once you're in there. So I go, let's leverage that sales stuff. Go, here is a customer service all-star who has educational background and practical experience with a big heart, who took care of her mother, who's volunteering with Alzheimer's patients. You know, this is someone that you really want to have. And the kind of sales that she did in retail was consultative sales, because she did very high-end fashion. You know, all the couture or whatever brands, and these were clients that she kept a whole database on, blah, 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 blah. She got like 3 or 4 interviews immediately. Before she had done that, before she changed her LinkedIn, before she did any of that stuff, before she repackaged herself, she was getting nothing. So you can repackage for new things that you want to do in your career. And you know, basically, this methodology will help you to do that. Yes?
A couple of observations. I think both of them relate to the earlier 2 comments. As far as the question of visionary goes, I think a small group out here in the category part of it is doing that. I have a proven track record in this situation and hands-on execution.
Yeah, that can be fun. But you want to be careful, because you can always put that in evidence. This is not something that's going to be published. This is a private thing for yourself, so you can focus, which is very hard for people to do, focus. And he thought that the most salient point was being an open source software visionary, because at the time, she knew the company was kind of moving in this direction, and she knew that had currency. Now, is she actually going to say, hi, I'm a software visionary? I don't think so. I think that the visionary part would come from the ecosystem, you know, shoring her up and saying, oh yes, and for her being in these various positions that show that, you know, she's a visionary.
I had a second comment too.
Yes?
Following up on this observation on the ancillary brand, create a second brand, I was reading What Color is a Character, and they explicitly says, you know what, learn to describe yourself in 3 different ways, cast a broad net, so to speak. I don't know what your thoughts are.
So the question was about having 2 or 3 brands, and you know, older books saying, you know, a career book saying, you know, cast your net broadly with like 3 different ways that you can talk about yourself. Be very careful in this day and age, especially with the internet. I mean, like, some people have 2 or 3 LinkedIn profiles. I totally don't agree with that. You look flaky, you know, quite frankly. So figure out what is your best, your strongest suit, and go with that. It doesn't mean that you can't answer, you know, someone who calls you and says, I'm interested in you, interview a person. I'm not saying you can't interview for that job, but publicly, you don't want to be known for 2 or 3 things. You have to pick and choose. So pick the one thing that's your strongest suit. And again, low-hanging fruit, if there's other stuff going on, you're not publicizing it, but you can go after it. But do not brand yourself around that, because if you try to have 2 or 3 brands as one person, you're going to look kind of schizophrenic. So I just can't, you know, advise you to do that.
So far, the way you are explaining it is basically try to have a unified message about the brand that you represent, right?
Yeah.
So in my situation, I have a company that does sell services. Well, I'm also pursuing investment for product development that I'm trying to do. So now I have the short-term problem of trying to sell my services company so that I can continue to sustain while trying to acquire investors for the product development that I'm planning. So now how do I brand myself? If I go to LinkedIn profile and I say, well, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur and I'm trying to do all these things, nobody cares about giving me services business, because they might think that he's going to go away and do something else.
I don't know if I can answer that question like right here and now, but and we're going to get into the LinkedIn portion later. But, you know, I think it's fine. You can either decide to have what your current title is on LinkedIn or not, or just something that is not a particular with a particular company, but you're branding yourself in a certain way. But can you hold that till we get to the later slides? What I'd like, and how many of you would like to spend a little bit of time working on your positioning statement and talking about it? If not, then we'll just continue on. We only have one person. So I'm going to move ahead, and you can always work on it, afterwards. So let's look at the supporting evidence. So, this person made a claim about being a visionary. So what happened is that she was on a number of standards committees. Became known in the whole standards, these standards organizations, leading groups, helping to write specs, that kind of thing. Did a major trade show keynote, won actually the Visionary Award at her company. So this is all evidence of, having that visionary status. We talked about accelerating adoption. Well, she actually, through her standards work, got a bunch of these influencers to endorse the standard. And then major companies actually signed on to that standard, giving that standard a lot of credibility in the whole open source area. In terms of meeting corporate objectives, she can say, okay, now we have the open web industry leadership position, thanks to all this groundwork that has been done. And we have results in new revenue sources. We have monetized this open source and software. And she can point to that. So always in your evidence, have metrics, there's hard data and soft data that you can provide. Some of it's going to be anecdotal. You can use anecdotal data as an evidence point. So now, what I'm going to have you do is we're going to take a few minutes to practice your elevator pitch. Now, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to have some fun here. So I want everyone to stand up. Please stand up to get the blood flowing back to the brain. And I want you to pair up. Just whoever's at your table, just pair up. I want you to introduce, okay, A will introduce Kevin herself to B, and B will introduce Kevin herself to A. And you have 3 minutes, so a minute and a half each, and then we're going to talk about it. So, go.